Today we're talking about this one, Megamorphs 4, Back to Before. Now, first thing that springs to mind as soon as I say that title is that it's rather unfortunate in how it's titled because it sounds more like a bingo call than a book title. Megamorphs 4, Back to Before. It's not the most inspiring title, but that's nothing to do with the actual content of the book. Big thing, Catherine's back. Yay! Kay Applegate is back writing. Now, what tends to happen, as I've found out, when Catherine comes back from a hiatus, as the ghostwriters have done their thing, every time she comes back, it seems to be that the writing it's much better. It's got a nicer flow to it. It's like the breaks are doing her good. And it's the same again here. It's written really well. It's probably one of the better written books of the series so far. It's got a nice flow. Everything's all right. You know, it hasn't broken any canon as far as I can tell, unlike the last couple of books. It's just nicely written, nicely paced, and it's very exciting to read, which is the biggest plus for this book. And you'll notice I say it's the biggest plus for this book because it is. And once we get into the plot, we'll find out why that's the best part of the book. Now, when I've seen polls of people judging the Megamorphs books, so of course you've got the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, this one tends to come out as the favourite. Now, Megamorphs 3 was awesome, absolutely awesome, easy 10 out of 10, one of the best books of the series. I absolutely loved it. So coming into this one, seeing how most people thought, oh, this was the best of the lot, I was thinking, wow, I'm in for something big here. It's not as good as Megamorphs 3, not by a long shot. Is it as good as Megamorphs 1? It's better than Megamorphs 1. Is it as good as Megamorphs 2? Wait and see you to the end of the video. Right, so let's get into this one. It starts off with Jake, and they've just been in a big battle. It's in like a fabric place or whatever. There's no reason given for this particular mission. They've just been on this mission. And they've suffered. They're all alive, barely. And there's, you know, dead Hork-Bajir everywhere. There's a close to death human controller who's sort of crying out to his mother. And they see him, and they know that they can't do anything about it, so they just leave him. So they leave all these dead bodies and this human controller who's about to die, they just leave him. And so Jake gets home, and he's having another one of these nights where it's all just a bit too much. It's all a bit too much. He's had enough. And let's put this into context. So we've gotten to the point in the series, in the 30s, where the Animorphs are well settled into their life as Animorphs. They've been through it all, they've seen everything, and they know that this is their duty. They know it, but the stakes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just seems to me that, at least Jake at this point, he's had a bit of a breakdown. Hence why he's having these thoughts. And that's when the Drode comes in. Yay, the Drode! Everyone's favourite wrinkled prune dinosaur thing. He's no one's favourite, let's be honest. But he comes in and he says, well, hello, kiddo. I'm just hanging around in a kid's bedroom, you know, fucking whatever. He says to Jake, you know, you can change this. You can, you know, get rid of all these horrible memories and all that stuff. All you need to do is say the word and I've got it for you, you know. I'll do you a deal. And by the end of that chapter, we don't hear Jake say it, but we know that he says yes. Now, this part annoys me. Why does it annoy me? Well, specifically because the Drode says, me, Kryak and the Ellimist have come to an agreement. We want to offer you this thing. So here's the offer. Compare this to, all right, so you got Jake, you got random kid A. You've got kid A sitting in bed and he wants his whole life to change. He thinks his life is shit and all that. And part of that reason is because there's a bully at school. Kid B. So Kid B has been bullying Kid A. And Kid B, the bully, and Kid A's mother strike a deal. They say, right, we need to convince Kid A to eat more apples. That will make his life better because it's good for you and it gives you energy and it brightens your day and it's good, healthy food. Who's going to be the best person to bring this offer to Kid A? The mother or the bully? Who do you think? Probably the mother, you'd say. She'll come in and say, right, I know you don't like this kid, but we both think that it'd be better if you ate apples. The kid would be like, but he might do it. The bully just shows up in this kid's room and said, hey, me and your mother agree you should eat more apples, mate. No, you'd think something's up. You'd go, what the fuck is this all about? Get out of my room. If Yellow Mister's part of this deal, why doesn't he show up? Why is the Droid showing up? What? It just makes no sense. It's stupid. Is the Yellow Mist on holiday? Has he gone to Ibiza for the week? I don't fucking know. Why isn't he there? He should be. That's logical, isn't it? And for whatever reason, Jake says yes. Oh, this Droid character, who we assume is the Kryak's second-hand man, the big bad. And he comes into my room, offers me a deal, and I'm just going to accept it. No, Jake. Even in his most tired, miserable PTSD state, Jake would not say, yes, ultimate bad guy, I accept your offer, for which you have given me no conditions. Just, really, book? Really? Not a good start. Anyway, the deal is thusly. They get transported back in time, or to an alternate universe, which it probably turns out to be, to just before they go through the construction site in the original series, meet Elfangor, get given the morphin powers, all that jazz. And they decide instead to go the long route home. So they miss Elfangor crashing, they see the ship flying off, hitting the ground in the distance, but they're just like, we're kids, we're teenagers, we're too down with the hippity hops to care about that sort of stuff. So they all bugger off home. A big part of the first half of this story is centred around Tobias. And he, of course, has a really shitty life. He's living with his uncle and his aunt, sort of bounce between them. They don't give a crap about him. And we get some pretty good scenes, actually, of him being bullied in school. Kids called Andy and Tap Tap. I'm going to work them into my Animorphs Against Humanity deck some way or another. But they've been bullying him, and we get these graphic little scenes of them basically kicking him in, giving him a good walloping. And it's pretty sad. And there's this guy that's watching him getting beaten up, and he gives a business card. Hey, join the sharing, we're a cool club. So Tobias goes along to these sharing meetings, and he starts playing pool with a guy called Bill. And we see a few meetings of, for God's sake, fiancé. We see Tobias go through these meetings, and he builds up his esteem in the sharing community. And we see he's about to get bullied by Andy and Tap Tap again in the locker rooms. And two of these sharing guys come in and fend off Andy and Tap Tap. And they just sort of have his back, and then they wander off, and he's thinking, this is great, you know. I've got people who will just back me up because I'm part of this group. I'm part of a large collective, and we look out for each other and all that. So he's falling into the trap. Remember when I told, during the Visser Chronicles book, I was talking about how the sharing reminds me of something like the People's Temple, you know, Jim Jones and all that, where it's all this big collective and everyone hangs out and has a great time and they've all got each other's backs, and then they all drank the Kool-Aid and died. But that's, you know, that's the future. But Tobias is falling into that trap, the cult trap. And he's going to these meetings, and there's this, of course there's Chapman there, but you've also got Mr. Visser, because Visser 3 didn't think about having a more appropriate pseudonym here, there and everywhere. It's actually a genuine surname, Visser, by the way. I think it's a Dutch surname. So if he passed himself off as Dutch, then it's cool. I remember there was a football player called Jan Visser, and he, I believe, was Dutch. So it's not a completely uncommon name. It's actually Dutch. Yeah, so there you go. Visser 3 is playing as a Dutch person. But regardless, he's there and he's having a big meeting. And he's saying, we need to look out for each other. We're better as a collective. We need to give up our individualities and be one big collective and deal with the horrors of society in a much better way. So Tobias has been slowly indoctrinated, and then it comes to time to become a full member. And he goes in there, and he goes down to this meeting room. The Visser 3 is there, and at first I thought, Christ, he's micromanaging again, isn't he? But it turns out he's there for a reason. So Tobias is put on this thing with the pool. He changes his mind at the last minute, but it's too late by that point. Head first in, gets a yerk in his head called Odret. I forget the number, but it's Odret. And this is a really weird bit. So Visser comes up and says, "Report, Odret." And he says, "I come with a message from the Council of 13. And you are to continue Visser plan for a slow invasion. You must not go in hard, fast and deadly." And so, it turns out this Odret character is one of Visser right-hand men or what have you. But Visser doesn't know that yet. He suspects it later, but at this point, yeah. But this is really weird. I mean, how inefficient do you want your system to be? Christ, a bloody carrier pigeon would be a more efficient system for the Yeerks at this point. They got a message from the Council of 13. Do you not come pre-packaged with a host? Why did he have to get a new host from Earth that he's not used to? Why aren't the Council of 13 sending out emails directly to Visser 3? Why are we not having a better system here, guys? Come on. It's pathetic. You wouldn't get away with this even in the 90s. And remember, you're aliens. You've got higher tech than us. Why are you fucking in the 80s level? No, not even that. As I said, carrier pigeons are more effective. This is like medieval levels of communication going on here between the Yeerks. And you're supposed to be bloody highly advanced. What a load of bollocks. Melters. Yeah, it just seems it's just a way to shoehorn the Visser 3 bit in there. And this happens too much with Animorphs, where it chooses convenience over logic. And that's what's happened here. Instead of finding a logical way for this scenario to happen, it's all about convenience. Oh, we'll infest Tobias, and at the same time, that Yeerk is the one with the message from the Council of 13, even though he hasn't got a host, and Visser 3 doesn't receive the message direct. He has to get it from this Yeerk, who's now in Tobias. It's just convoluted and rubbish, basically. Rubbish! I might as well just finish Tobias' timeline off now, because he doesn't connect with the other animals for the rest of this. He says this to Visser 3, oh, the Council of 13 says this, but Visser 3 calls his bluff later on and calls him into his office in the Yeerk pool and says, "Who do you work with, Visser 1 or me?" And so Odret says, "All right, fine, I work with Visser 1, but now that I've told you, can I be on your side? Can I be in your team?" And no, head cut off, whatever, Tobias is dead. That's Tobias in this alternate universe. He's dead now. Okay. Right. Serves him right for joining this communist cult called the Sharing, you know. Always the first against the wall, you know. How it goes in these regimes. Anyway, back to the other Animorphs. Axe is in his dome ship under the water, and there's nothing really new that we learn here. We see how he acquires the shark that he got in book 4. Pretty much unnecessary, really. A lot of this book is like that. For the first 2/3 of the book, it's just covering stuff we already knew and just adding a bit of detail, which is all right. But I'm not learning anything new. It's a good thing that KA's back and the writing's quite thrilling, because if it weren't for that, this would be such a dirge of a book. But yeah, Axe is underwater, and he escapes as a shark just in time for the bug fight to arrive and implode the dome ship, and he goes off into human society, and he gets obsessed with Oreos, which is fun. Not to mention the cinnamon buns. He's more of an Oreos person in this particular universe. He hangs out in a mental institute at the start, which is... I'm surprised Axe hasn't been cancelled yet, honestly, because he's going around saying, oh, everybody's just this insane person pretending to be this, that, and t'other. The last book as well, where he was so anti-disabled people. Why isn't the SJW sect of the Animorphs fan base cancelled Axe yet? I don't know. I really don't know, but that's regardless. He's hanging around there, and then he flies out wondering what the hell he's going to do. And his plan is to reveal himself. So he goes to the studio, appears on television, and sets off a whole world of banter. Yeah, so he's revealed that the aliens are invading. But before we go too far into that, let's go back to the 4 main Animorphs. The ones that aren't dead yet. Jake is sort of flirting with the idea of joining the Share, and he goes to a couple of meetings. He sees Tobias there a couple of times, but it turns out he's not a great fan of it. He doesn't like the idea of giving up his individuality. You know, he's more of a libertarian than a socialist. So he sticks on that side of the fence and he says no, which annoys Tom greatly. The other Animorphs are having a strange old time. Cassie is seeing hallucinations of everything everywhere. And there's a great little bit here that connects her back to Axe. She's having these nightmares and she's seeing things, so she goes down to the barn late at night and starts messing with the animals. And she's talking to herself. She's like, okay, this is all a bit crazy. She's actually talking to herself. And then we zoom forward to Axe in his dome ship and he starts talking to himself and he steps back and thinks, this is, I'm sort of falling into solipsistic conversation here. I'm talking to myself. That's usually a sign of mental degradation. And it's like, have we just implied that Cassie's mentally unstable? I mean, possibly, who knows? Apparently Mark is a sociopath, according to Michael Grant, so we don't know the underlying things going on in the heads of these Animorphs. But yeah, Marco and Rachel are having their own little world of fun. Marco is chatting up Rachel in a really creepy way. They're in the cinema watching some old film or whatever, something about DNA. And she's sitting in her seat. She's got people beside her, so there's no real easy way to get out. And Marco's sort of leaning over her shoulder, giving it the old, hello, Poppet. It's a bit creepy. Why? Cancel Marco. Hashtag cancel Marco. Hashtag cancel Axe. Fucking just cancel them all at this point. But anyway, 10 minutes later, he's still coming up to her saying, yeah, I've got the moves, I've got the grooves, I've got all you need in a man. But then he sees his mother. And this is another weird part, right? So Mark is like, hold on, it's my mother. Gives chase. And then Rachel, who for the best part of 20 minutes has just sort of shrugged him off and doesn't give a damn about him, is suddenly like, yes, I shall join you on this mission. I mean, I know Rachel's sort of, she barrels into these things, but that's a weird thing, isn't it? Some weird kid whose mother died, according to this book, 2 years ago, but I believe canonically it should be 1 year ago at this particular point. Could be wrong. That's one of the only things that I think was wrong with this book. So this kid just says, that's my mother, runs off. Why is she running off with him? It just, again, it's not logical, it's convenient, but whatever. They follow Marco's mother, who keeps changing wigs. It's like something out of a Scooby-Doo thing. And they go into a dark alleyway. And there's these other guys that come up and they've got guns and shit. Visser 1 runs away, leaving Rachel and Marco to deal with this. They run into an alley, find some stairs, run up them. And then these guys start bang, 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 shooting. And then it's start firing with... Because obviously if they can't aim with handguns, they're going to be much better aim with their Dracon beams. I don't freaking know. Why they made that decision... Maybe they thought they were better aim with it. They still missed regardless. They're all a bunch of stormtroopers in the Empire. But yeah, so they've been shot at with these laser guns. And so they bring this story... Marco tells Jake. So Jake's all a bit weirded out. And then he blurts out to Cassie, who's been saying all these weird... But basically it all comes down to the Animorphs come together and say, what the hell's going on here? Okay? And then we get one of those big points. You know, I told you about Axe going to reveal himself. He's on TV. And we're narrated by Jake at this point. And he sees Tom watching the TV. And he's all bubbling with rage, seeing this handlight. And then because he's not subtle at all, he charges up the stairs 2 at a time. Wham, bam, bammo. Jake slowly follows him. And Tom comes back out of his room. And Jake swears he sees a gun that Tom is hiding. He goes downstairs, and just like Rachel before him, Jake sees, an unusual scenario that I've no idea what's going on. I shall follow. I mean, I get it. The Animorphs are brave characters, and it's not out of, it's not completely out of the ordinary that they do these sorts of things. But what he does, he jumps out the window, jumps into the back of his mother's car just before Tom gets in and drives off. You don't know what the hell he's going into. He could be going up to shoot the school. I mean, I know how you Americans do things over there. He could be another one of them school shooters, but thankfully not, right? He goes to the studio where Axe was broadcast. And he gets out of the car. Jake gets out shortly after. Tom, as it turns out, he's got the Dracon beam. shoots the guard at the door. Jake sees it. And then the police start firing at Jake because they're obviously controllers as well. He hides. He's a bit shocked. And then what he sees later, after this is all said and done, is these people that work there being marched out with Chapman, Mr. Visser, and Tom, and Tobias. They're all there marching these people out. Very convenient that those 4 specific characters are there marching these guys out. It's, once again, convenience over logic, but it's one of the lesser cases this time, thankfully. So now, not only have Marco and Rachel been shot at with laser guns, so has Jake. So the Animorphs are all in a bit of a kerfuffle about this. They meet in Jake's barn, and Cassie is still like looking around like, there should be a bird up there and an alien. And the Animorphs have this big thing of what the hell's going on, what's all this about? It's some sort of conspiracy, and they settle on this must be some sort of conspiracy going on. And then Cassie's saying things like, the alien, he needs to be standing there. His name is something like Max, or whatever the TV show called him, and there should be a bird up there. There should be a bird and there. Bird. And yeah, they all think she's slightly crazy, but there's something behind it all. They're not quite sure what. What happens next is Axe is on TV again, because he's doing the rounds, you know? He goes on, he puts together a videotape explaining about the Yeerk invasion, basically just detailing off the Yeerks are this, that, and t'other, blah, blah, blah. And he makes it so that it appears on most of the cable channels. And the Animorphs, of course, see this. The Animorphs are, of course, shocked. Jake and Marco in the same, they're both at Jake's house. Jake calls Cassie on the phone. Marco goes off to the little boy's room at just the right time. And Jake puts down the phone, but Tom had been listening in. And he's got the weapon. Oi, Jake, I heard what you done said. You fucked, mate. And Marco comes out, tries charging him, failed attempt. Tom has got control of both of them, and he starts leading them down out the front, where a car arrives. Okay? But just as they come out the front door, there's Rachel, Deus Ex Machina, wham, with a baseball bat. And breaks his legs or what have you. So Jake takes the gun, the Dracon beam from Tom, shoots one of the guys who was coming at him, shoots at the car, driver runs off somewhere. At this point, Tom had already called the other Yeerks, and he starts laughing hysterically. The bug fighter comes into the sky. It starts stormtroopers, bang, 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 shooting everything apart from the people it's trying to kill. Although, to be fair, this is where Marco pops his clogs, because they run about what felt like 5 miles just being chased down by this bug fighter. And they get to the end, and just as the bug fighter gives up and goes elsewhere, Marco is killed. So he gets, I don't know, like a glancing blow from a Dracon beam or some rubble hit him, but he's dead. He's out. He's gone. He's done. Poor old Marco. The Animorphs are so aggrieved, so traumatised by Marco's death that they go to Taco Bell in the mall and buy tacos. But just at the right time, because that's Axe is still hanging around that area, and that's when the Yeerks decide, right, fuck it, they know about the invasion now, invade, and they send all their troops to the mall. That's right, they send their troops to the mall. The entire Yeerk army, right, mall, go! Get the kids shopping at the Gap, they're the most important ones, so yeah. By the way, the Animorphs have still got these Dracon beams. They've got their tacos in one hand, Dracon beam in the other, make sure they get the right hand. But these Hork-Bajir all start storming in and rounding people up. There's a bit of a scuffle going on, lots of violence. Rachel and Jake are shooting this way and that, freaking Rambo over here. And Axe turns up, starts slicing and dicing. And they manage to force their way up to the top floor. And they say, right, we need to get to the roof of this building. So they smash through the door, run up the stairs, burn the stairs behind them with their Dracon beams, reach the top of the building where the blade ship is nicely parked without any guards, because, as we know, the Yeerks are freaking imbeciles. They go up to this, they fight their way in, and they come to the bridge of the blade ship. And what do you know? There's Visser 3. But just before we get to that bit, just as they're fighting to get into the Blade ship, Cassie is shot with a Dracon beam and fizz, disintegrated, gone. She's dead now. And also Rachel died. I should really mention that as well. She just ran in there and probably got her head lopped off, something like that. She just dies as well. So yeah, they've both gone. We're left with Jake and Axe. So they're here in the Blade ship, and Axe thinks, right, so there's Visser 3. I could stand back, keep enough distance, and fire and have him killed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to step closer to within range of his tail blade, and then oh no, my arm. What freaking idiot, Axe. Christ almighty. And then Cassie appears and kills Visser 3. I don't freaking know. It's all gone tits up at this point. Quite literally, because in the story even it says it's gone tits up at this point. But Cassie is alive again, and she's got a weapon, and she shoots off Visser 3's upper body, and now he's dead. And they kill the Taxxons that are guiding the Blade ship, take the Blade ship up into the atmosphere to send a message out to the Andalites. But there's the pool ship, the Yeerk pool ship. And Axe is like, right, so we're going to end this invasion now. Diddly, 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 done. And they're about to fire at this pool ship. When time stops, Marco appears as a gorilla for no apparent reason. He demorphs immediately. He's just a gorilla for whatever reason. And then Rachel, all the Animorphs are back. And then Tobias appears as well in his human body. He eventually gets turned into a hawk. So all the Animorphs are reunited. But time has stopped at just the moment they were going to end the Yeerk invasion. Right. The Ellimist and the Droid are there. Okay. And the Droid is stomping his feet. I can't believe you've messed my plan up. The Ellimist is laughing merrily as the Droid sulks in his petulance. This is the weirdest part of this book. The explanation given to why things are the way they are is just baffling. And forgive me, I don't know what the hell happens here. Maybe I'd need to read it again just to get those minute little details. But if you know what happens here, please do tell me. Because all I got from this bit here was that Cassie is some sort of interdimensional being. And that because she's an interdimensional being, this timeline just broke. That's about the size of it. I mean, I know Cassie has some... I mean, she's a gifted morpher. She can morph straight from one morph to the other. She can do brain surgery. And now she's an intergalactic interloper. Interdimensional interloper. What the fuck is this character? Christ almighty. That's the explanation. Well, Cassie she just sees through the walls. She breaks the fifth wall even. And because of that, she's alive again to kill Visser 3 and enable the Animorphs to end the invasion by blowing up the pool ship. But we don't want that to happen, so we'll end this. I'm confused. I really am just baffled. It makes... I don't even know if it doesn't make sense. It's sense neutral. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't not make sense. Jesus, I've never been so confused at an Animorphs book. So yeah, because Cassie's been having these hallucinations, she's seeing stuff from the alternate universe. And the Droid was saying, oh, she's been meddling with the timelines behind the scenes. And so this timeline is broken, which means the Yeerks lose, which makes me sad. How are we going to get an explanation? When she died, did she like go up as a ghost and start messing with the timeline? How does it happen? I really don't know. Just please help me. So of course the Animorphs at this point should say, okay, can we continue with this timeline? I mean, I know we're all dead, but we're about to end the Yeerk invasion. Could we not do... No, we're going to go back to the other timeline where we don't know if we'll win or not. I mean, what the hell are these animals fighting for? I mean, the explanation is, oh, well, we'll die, and maybe millions of people will die as well. Well, there's your hand, right? There's your offer. You win, but millions die. On the other hand, everybody could die, or everybody could be enslaved. I know it's difficult, but the mere fact that they didn't even discuss it. Oh, please. So Jake gets shot back to the point where the droid enters his bedroom, and then we get a word-for-word repeat of chapter 2 until the very end. And the very last line is weird. It's really weird. I opened my mouth to speak. Oh, forget it, never mind, the droid said angrily. I mean, what? Oh, forget it, never mind. Did he only just realise that he was repeating time? Honestly, it's confused as it is baffling. That's the end of the book. A book that was 180 pages long. I think that's probably the quickest I've ever gone through a plot recap, because there was a lot of filler in this book. And I'm talking about stuff where we just go over actions that we know happened, that stuff that we don't really need to recap, and stuff that is recap but in more detail, which I suppose is fine, but it doesn't really add anything. The plot is actually quite limited in this one for the amount of pages. The plot to pages ratio is, you get what I'm saying? I mean, what do we learn about the characters from this book? It varies by character. I think Tobias is the main beneficiary of the character development side of this. It's been a while since he had much character development. The last book, 33, was crap. It's very much like book 33, but done better. Because in that one, we got images of Tobias's life as a kid. We got the same again in this book, but it's just written better. And basically, Tobias, if he doesn't get the morphing power, he becomes a communist. Bad news. So it's just funny to see how that turns out. And that's probably the most entertaining storyline, seeing him join this cult, give up his individuality for the greater good of the overarching power. Yeah, that's basically communism. So that's that. Rachel suffers here, I think. She's in character, but the big problem with this is that it puts her into her character development as a whole in perspective. If she's acting like this at the start of it all, book 1 stage Rachel is acting all that, going straight for it. And then you go to her last book, there's no real difference. Her character hasn't changed. Not really. She hasn't really changed at all. It just puts her character development, or lack thereof, into perspective. Cassie's character development, well, she's added another skill to her ever-growing list. Now she travels interdimensionally. You're a weird one, Cassie. I'll grant you that. No real character development for Marco. Jake, no, not really. The only one we get a slight character development on this one is Tobias. Axe is an interesting one, though. We get to see what would happen if the Animorphs didn't save him, and what he does do is actually the most important part of this book. He immediately reveals himself to the humans without first contacting his own people, which we know that he can do going from book 8. So he takes the initiative and basically starts open warfare between the Yeerks and the humans, which overall would probably be a bad thing. So it's probably a good thing that the Animorphs went and rescued Axe. Just saying. One of the biggest problems with this book is one that we've seen over the last few books. There's a disjointedness to it. Not specifically the book itself, but in context to the books around it. And this has been a problem over the last 5 books, at least the majority of the books in the 30s with the predominantly ghost-written stuff. It's disjointed. There's so much potential for these things to be interwoven and for everything to seem logical and make sense. But the book doesn't do that. This book should follow book 38. It should. Remember book 38 where the Animorphs found out, damn it, the Andalites are not coming. They're not coming. This book should follow that rather than 39 and 40, which, let's face it, are complete filler and barely canon as far as I'm concerned. This book should have followed that, and it should have given us that context at the end of that battle at the start of the book where they say, right, we're just ruining ourselves here and we know the Andalites aren't coming. Even if it's just a little line here, it puts it into that context, it connects it to book 38, which was a fantastic book and an important one. It needed that connection. The problem with it is that it's been 2 filler books since 38, so we lose that momentum, and this one just feels a bit weaker for it. My next video is going to be a cycle review on books 36 to this one. And I'm actually going to go into quite a bit of detail on how I think we could have fixed it to connect these dots that weren't connected when these books were originally written, to make that cycle of books much stronger and put this one to a much greater context. This book suffers because of the context around it, unfortunately. That's not to say that it can't have good stuff after it. Book 41, The Familiar, from what I remember, is quite similar to this, and it would be nice to... It has been so long since I read it, it could turn out to be dross. But following from this one and seeing where Jake's character is, I think 41 can have a good impact, not only on itself and future books, but also looking back at this one. Possibly. I could be wrong. But yeah, the context for this one matters. Does it help us further into the series? Not really. I mean, at the end... The Elmist tells Cassie, you'll be the only one with even vague recollections of what happened here today. So this is all forgotten, basically, apart from interdimensional, inter-universal Cassie. I still don't know how the fuck that works. Demon Cassie has reached a whole new level of evil. She travels between dimensions, spreading hypocrisy wherever she goes. Let's just have a second to think about the Drode as well. I've talked before, specifically in book 27, how I thought the Drode was perhaps a chi hallucination. Could this whole book be another chi hallucination? Why couldn't it be? I mean, the Drode's there. Again, the whole thing of the Drode appearing to Jake rather than the Animist at the start, which is a bit iffy, a bit strange in my opinion. Why? I mean, it could be. I don't see why it would have to be, apart from the fact that it would have to be if the Drode was part of the chi manipulation game that they were playing. I mean, we see the Elmist at the end, but we know that the chi know who the Elmist is, so they can create a hallucination of him. And yeah, it's not going to add anything to the series. It could well be that, but that's going off into the deep end of my thinking at the moment. I'm pretty much done with this book. Jake's leadership, I won't score him because obviously we've travelled back in time. I think it's a bit unfair to score him in that context. The book itself, I gave In the Time of Dinosaurs an 8 out of 10. It's not as good as In the Time of Dinosaurs. This is a 7 out of 10. It's average. It's pretty damn average. We don't really learn anything new. There are a few little plot issues. The ending was bizarre. The whole Cassie thing was just unexplained nonsense as far as I'm concerned. But the big plus for this book is it was entertaining. It was fun. It was a good read. That's it. It was just a nice read. So it deserves at least a 7 out of 10 just for that alone. I was thoroughly entertained. I kept reading. I didn't put it down in disgust at any point. You haven't been thrown on the floor despite your obvious flaws. Anyway, bingo cool book. Megamorphs 4, Back to Before. You got a 7 out of 10. Could have and perhaps should have been better. What have we got next week? We're not going straight into book 41 because we've got this one to contend with. Animorphs 2, The Next Passage. And just like with the last Animorphs book, I'm going to do 2 videos. One of them, just like this, where I'm reviewing it, a short little video doing that. But I'm also going to do a video where I read it through with you, perhaps with a pint, you know, just have a bit of fun. Let's do a bit of reading together. because I've never read that one. So it's going to be my first ever read through, so that'll be fun, won't it? Also, I've got the Cycle 8 review coming up, which will include this book and the 5 previous. And that one should be fun as well, because I'm going to go in depth on how I think that could have been improved. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Ta-ra!